So let's go ahead and look at adding a new patient. In this particular page where we have our patient list, I'm going to go straight to this icon here, Add Patient. And again, you can see the red stars donate the mandatory fields. So let's add in our new patient. Maybe it's test, date of birth, gender female. I'm just putting in the mandatory fields for speed in terms of pension. This is really to reflect if they have a government pension or not. Do they have private health insurance? And importantly, this next section is the patient consent. So we recommend that you verbally discuss the consent process at this point, and it's basically very straightforward. You need to tell them that this is, it behaves like a medical record. The data is kept very safely and securely, has been through rigorous security checks, and also important to tell them that it is our intention to de-identify the data to use for research purposes. We would not be on-selling or sharing their personal information or with anyone, including the garment companies that we use in the garment search. So as well as telling them verbally, we also recommend that you either provide their email address here, at which point we will be sending this information to them, or we have a link here that you can click on, which takes you to a Word doc describing the same information. You can then print that and provide them a paper copy instead. So we need to just click here to advise that verbal consent has been received. So we just move on to the other mandatory fields. Sorry, just going to get through these. State and postcode. Items like the next of kin, the patient GP, the referrer. None of these are mandatory. All of them are at your discretion whether or not you'd want to retain that information. Patient diagnosis, again, if you say that the patient has current signs of edema, we ask you to identify when that swelling was first observed, if it's upper body, is it the right, the left, or both that are affected? Left, cancer-related. If it's cancer-related, the system will ask if it is breast cancer that's the issue. These fields, again, are not mandatory. So if you want to, you can elect to provide this information. You can even add more than one surgery if you need to. You can identify where radiotherapy occurred. Sorry, it's the left affected. So, and then there is a section here about more broad health conditions and an option to provide a bit more detail if you want to about the medical history, current medications. I think this is quite helpful to be able to identify whether or not there is a cellulitis history, and certainly this is very useful from a research perspective. And so this is an opportunity really to keep a record of past and present cellulitis episodes. So you can identify if it was intravenous, was the patient seen, were they admitted to hospital, and if they were, for how many days, and then pressing add, you can add to this record here, and you can develop a record of, particularly for those patients who have recurrent cellulitis, you can get a record here of the episodes. And again, we have here social supports, occupation and activity. So you can really put anything that you want to in those free fields. I'm going to actually remove one of the mandatory fields. And then if I click on save and update, it won't let me. It will make sure that I go back to that mandatory field and fill it in. Okay, so let's go back to save and update, and it will take us back here to our patient list. Let's see if we can find, yeah, there's Tess. Tess has been entered as a patient. Thanks.